Hi guys, this is Tex Driller Economics class. The topic of discussion is Introduction to Economics. At the end of this class, you should be able to know the meaning of economics and various definitions of economics by various scholars. You should be able to know the basic concepts of economics. You should be able to know why economics is a science and why economics is a social science. You should be able to know the fundamental economic problem of a society. You should be able to know the branches of economics and also the reasons why we study economics or importance of economics. Now let's start with the introduction to economics. Now, economics has so many definitions, and we don't have a definite definition of economics. But economics was first defined by a scholar known as Adam Smith in 1776. Adam Smith defined economics as an inquiry into nature and the cause of wealth of nation. Adam Smith defined economics in his book called Wealth of Nation that he wrote in 1776. In that book, he referred economics to be political economy. Adam Smith was referred to as the father and founder of economics because he was the first person to give an idea of what we call economics today. Adam Smith was referred to as a classist because a classist is someone that gives the first idea about a theory. Adam Smith never existed alone. He shared similar view with some scholars, and those scholars were also referred to as classes. So we had other classes which were J.S. Mills, J.B. Say, F.A. Walker, Thomas Malthus. We have David Ricardo and the likes of them. All these scholars, they defined economics in their own way, which means they have various definitions of economics by them. We also have another scholar known as Alfred Marshall. He was referred to as a neoclassist, and a neoclassist is someone that modified an existing theory to achieve a particular cause or objective. So between 1890 and 1896, Alfred Marshall wrote a book and he defined economics as the study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. If you look at the definition of economics by Alfred Marshall and the definition of economics by the classes, you see that they mean the same thing, but the usage of words may be different, which means Alfred Marshall modified their definition to suit his own objective. So Alfred Marshall was referred to as a neoclassist. Alfred Marshall never existed alone. He had some other scholars that shared similar view with him, and those other scholars were referred to as neoclassists as well, and they include V. Pareto, Irving Fishers, E. Kennan, F.Y. Edgeworth, and the likes of them. All these neoclassists, they defined economics in their own way, and they were called neoclassists. So we have the most acceptable definition of economics, which was given by Professor Lord Lionel C. Robbins in 1932. He defined economics as a science which studies human behavior as a relation to ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. This definition is seen to be the most acceptable definition of economics because it contains points not mentioned by the classists and the neoclassists. What are these points that Professor Lord Lionel C. Robbins made us to understand? The classists and the neoclassists believe that economics is a science and a social science and also about material wealth. But Professor Lord Lionel C. Robbins agreed to that fact and made us to understand that aside that fact that was made by the classists and the neoclassists, he made us to understand that human wants are unlimited in supply. He made us to understand that resources are limited in supply. And when humans make choices. They make choices from pool of options. So when a choice is made, there will be a foregone alternative, which means whenever you make choices, you have opportunity costs. All these were made to understand. All these were explained to us by Professor Lord Lionel C. Robbins in his definition. Now let's look at questions that usually confuse students, questions that baffle students. And number one of them is, why is economics a science? Number two is, why is economics a social science? Number three, what are ends? Number four, what are scarce means? Number five, what are alternative uses? These questions were made to all. These questions were properly explained in the definition of Professor Lord Lionel C. Robbins. Now let's look at the answer to these questions. The first question is that, why is economics a science? Economics is a science because it adopts scientific approach in arriving at conclusion on economic issues. Because as economics, we make guesses, and those guesses are hypotheses. So we have scientific approach in which we achieve what? A theory. So we have hypothesis, we have experimentation, we have observation, we have explanation, and we have conclusion. You could make a guess that all slim girls are not well fed. Now you start to observe any slim girl around you. Then while observing, you are making experimentation. Then you cannot draw your conclusion that yes, all slim girls are not well fed. And you can draw your conclusion that no, it's not that all slim girls are not well fed. So these are scientific in nature. So in economics, we have theories, and those theories are bounded by what? By laws. These are the reasons why economics is a science. Number two, why is economics a social science? Economics is a social science because it studies human behavior. How does economics studies human behavior? Economics studies human behavior by using limited resources to satisfy human unlimited wants. The third question is, what are ends? Ends refers to human unlimited wants, which means human wants are unlimited in supply. How did we know this? It's from the most acceptable definition of economics given by Professor Lord Lionel C. Robbins. The fourth question is that, what are scarce means? In the definition of economics, means refers to resources, and scarce means refers to limited human resources. Lastly, what are alternative uses? Alternative uses refers to options available for choice to be made. In life, we make choices from pool of options. So whenever we make choice, it gives rise to a foregone alternative. So whenever choice is made, there will be an opportunity cost. Now let's look at the basic concept of economics. The basic concept of economics consists of resources, wants, scarcity, scale of preference, choice, opportunity cost, and money cost. Now let's look at them one after the other. Resources are things needed to satisfy human wants, and resources could be human resources or material resources. Please note that resources are limited in supply. And how did we know that? It's from the most acceptable definition of economics, which means resources are not in abundance, which means that resources are scarce. Number two is wants. Wants are desires of human that are not important to be satisfied. And in the most acceptable definition of economics, we're made to understand that human wants are unlimited in supply, which means human wants are insatiable. The reason why human wants are insatiable is because resources needed to satisfy them are not in abundance. It's important for us to be able to differentiate between wants and need. Wants are desires that are not important to be satisfied, while needs are desires that are important to be satisfied, which means You can do without your wants, but you can't do without your needs. Number three is scarcity of resources. Scarcity of resources occurs when human resources is lesser than human wants. So when want is greater than resources, we have scarcity. Number four is scale of preference. Scale of preference is the arrangement of wants in order of priority, which is the listing of wants in order of importance. So when you arrange your wants in order of priority, you list your wants in order of importance. It is said to be what? Scale of preference. So why do we have to prepare a scale of preference? Which means the importance or necessity of scale of preference is because of limited resources. Because resources are limited in supply, humans need to arrange their wants in order of priority and also to be able to make right choices. The next is choice. Choice is a selected want in the scale of preference that is satisfied. So want in the scale of preference that is satisfied becomes human choice. The next is opportunity cost. Opportunity cost is the want in the scale of preference that is not satisfied. So opportunity cost refers to a foregone alternative. Another name for opportunity cost is real cost or true cost. So opportunity cost simply means what you forego in order to satisfy a want. Then finally, money cost is the last basic concept of economics. And money cost is the amount spent in order to satisfy a want. So the money you spend to satisfy a want becomes the money cost. Now let's look at this example. All right, so as to understand the basic concept of economics. Look at the question. A man has 4,500,000. He wishes to buy a Nissan saloon car for 2 million or a Toyota Jeep for 3.5 million naira. If he bought the Toyota Jeep, what is number one, opportunity costs, number two, choice, number three, money costs, number four, wants, and number five, scale of preference. Now let's look at the solution. Let's look at the solution. Number one, opportunity costs is Nissan saloon car because it is a foregone alternative, which means since the man has decided to buy Jeep, the opportunity cost is the Nissan saloon car, which means the man has to forego Nissan saloon car so as to be able to buy the Toyota Jeep. Number two, his choice is Toyota Jeep because it is the selected want in the scale of preference that is satisfied. Number three, money cost. The money cost is 3,500,000 because it is the amount spent in order to satisfy his wants. Number four, wants. His wants are Nissan saloon car and Toyota Jeep because they are the things he has in mind to satisfy. Then if you are to prepare a scale of preference for the man, scale of preference is the arrangement or listing of wants in order of priority, which means that between Toyota Jeep and Nissan saloon car, Toyota Jeep happens to be the important want. So it will come first, followed by Nissan saloon car. So this is the way his scale of preference will be. Now let's take a look at the other subtopic, which is the fundamental economic problem of a society. The fundamental economic problem of a society is scarcity of resources. So scarcity of resources or limited resources is the fundamental economic problem of any society, and it gives rise to the basic economic problems, which are usually in form of questions. Number one is what to produce, which means number one basic economic problem is what to produce. Number two is for whom to produce. Number three is how to produce. Number four is efficient use of limited resources. So these basic economic problems, they occur because of limited resources, and limited resources is the fundamental economic problem of any society. Number one, what to produce is the basic economic problem. What to produce is the particular commodity that is produced by the economic agents. Who are the economic agents? Economic agents are individuals, firms, and governments that decide on allocation of scarce resources in a country. So the economic agents need to make research on a particular commodity that will be produced to satisfy human wants and to generate profit. Why will they go through all this stress of making research? Why will they make this decision? Is because of limited resources. If resources are in abundance, there will be no need to make any research onto the particular commodity that is to be produced, which means they'll produce anything. But because of limited resources, they have to decide on the particular commodity to be produced to satisfy human wants and to generate profit. Number two is for whom to produce. For whom to produce is talking about the target market in which production will be meant for. Economic agents will be forced to make decisions on the people that production will be meant for because resources are limited. They cannot produce anything for anybody. They need to determine their target market because resources are limited. Number three is how to produce. How to produce is talking about the method of production that will be adopted in production process. And the method of production are divided into two. We have the labor-intensive method of production and we have the capital-intensive method of production. Labor-intensive method of production involve the use of human effort in production process or use of more human efforts in production process than machines, while capital intensive involve the use of more machine in production process than human effort. So the method of production that will be used will be determined by the economic agent because of limited resources. Then we have the efficient use of limited resources. Efficient use of limited resources involve the use of limited resources to satisfy human unlimited wants, and usage of limited resources to satisfy human unlimited wants involves allocation of scarce resources, and allocation of scarce resources is better done with the use of production possibility curve. So this will lead us to another subtopic which has to do with production possibility curve, which can also be called PPC. So production possibility curve is a locus or point of various combinations of two commodities that a society can produce with limited resources and the level of technology available. So the possible combinations of two commodities that a society can produce with the limited resources available and the level of technology at the disposal of the society is said to be what? Production possibility curve. It can also be called production possibility frontier or production possibility boundary, which is PPB. It can also be called transformation curve. Let's take a look at how the curve looks. You can see that the curve is downward slope and it is concave to its origin. Let's take a look at the properties of production possibility curve. Production possibility curve has so many properties. So let's look at them one after the other. Number one, it involves two commodities only. Production possibility curve involves two commodities. As you can see, any graph has to do with two sides, y-axis and x-axis, which means we are considering two commodities. Number two, it is based on the concept of choice and opportunity cost, which means for every choice made on the PPC, it will bring about opportunity cost. Number three, it is based on the level of technology available in a society. So production possibility curve shows the level of technology that is available in a particular country or a society. Number 4, any point on the PPC shows opportunity cost of producing two commodities. Please, this point is very, very vital. Any point on the PPC shows that you are either producing more of one commodity and producing less of the other, or producing less of one commodity and producing more of the other commodity. So this point number 4 of the properties of production possibility curve is very, very vital. Number 5, any point on the PPC shows efficient usage or utilization of limited resources. So production made on the PPC, as you can see on the screen, shows that resources are fully utilized. So when production is made on the PPC, as you can see on the screen, it shows that resources are fully utilized, which means that all factors of production are fully compensated. And when that happens, there will be full employment and full production in such a society. Full employment is when over 95% of the labor force of the country are employed. So, and full production is the highest output produced with the lowest possible cost of input. This can only happen when production is done on the PPC. The next feature is that any point within the PPC shows that resources are underutilized. It shows inefficient usage of limited resources. As you can see on your screen, that the points X and point Y are within the PPC, and it shows that all factors of production are not fully compensated, which also means that there is an existence of idle resources in that society, and it will give rise to unemployment and underemployment. Unemployment is a situation where people are not involved in productive activities or earning real wage. And underemployment is a situation when a worker's potential is not fully utilized in production process. So unemployment and underemployment will occur when production is made within or inside the production possibility curve. The next feature is that points outside the PPC shows that production is not feasible. And the reason is that the resources are too limited to produce the two commodities. As you can see on your screen, point X and point Y, they are outside the PPC. It shows that production is unattainable or not attainable. So let's look at the next feature. An outward shift of the PPC indicates economic growth. And what are the reasons for an outward shift of the production possibility curve? The reasons are when there is increase in limited resources, when there's increase in innovation and invention used in production process, and when there's increase in level of technology. You will see that the production possibility curve of a society will shift to the right or outward. So one can also define economic growth as an outward shift in a country's production possibility curve. And the reasons are, as you can see on your screen. The next feature is a leftward or an inward shift in PPC, indicates economic recession. And what are the factors that can bring about a leftward or inward shift in PPC? When there is decrease in limited resources, when there's decrease in level of technology used in production process, when there's lack of innovation and invention in production of goods and services, all these will bring about a leftward and inward shift in production possibility curve. And this is economic recession to any society or country. The next one is a downward slope of PPC, indicates marginal rate of transformation. What is marginal rate of transformation, MRT? It is the rate at which units of a commodity is sacrificed in production process or given up in production process in order to produce more of the other commodity. As you can see on your screen, at point X, you can see that you are producing more of commodity A. At 4, you are producing less of commodity B. Then when you now move to point Y, you produce less of A and you produce more of B. So which means that the slope of the production possibility curve for point X to point Y, the slope of production possibility curve for point X to point Y shows that there is marginal rate of substitution, which means you have to give up production of A to produce more of B. So these are the features of the production possibility curve. So let's move to the next subtopic, which is the branches of economics. The branches of economics are two, which is micro and macroeconomics. Now let's look at them one after the other. Microeconomics deals with the behavior of individuals and firms in a society. It deals with how resources are allocated among individuals and firms in a country, which means that the microeconomics deals with a fraction of the aggregate economy. It deals with how production of goods and services are made. It deals with consumption of individuals, investment of firms, profit maximization of firms, and the likes. That's what microeconomics is all about. So microeconomics consists of the following. We can see theory of consumer behavior, theory of cost, theory of revenue, theory of market, theory of production, theory of demand and supply, theory of price determination, theory of distribution, and the likes. Let's look at the other branch of economics, which is macroeconomics. Macroeconomics deals with the aggregate economic activities in a country. It involves the sum total of economic activities in a country, which means that macroeconomics involves the behavior of all economic agents in a country. Remember, I told you earlier that economic agents involve individuals, firms, and governments. So it deals with how resources are allocated among the economic agents, all, not fraction, all of them. That's what macroeconomics is all about. So macroeconomics involves national income accounting, public finance, money and banking, inflation and deflation, unemployment, international trade, international organization, economic growth and development, and the likes. So these are the branches of economics. Let's look at the last subtopic of the introductory aspect of economics, which is the importance of economics, which is the reasons why you and I are studying economics. The first one is allocation of resources. You can see that economics enables individuals and households and the government to know how limited resources can be used effectively and efficiently. You can see that with the usage of economics, with the knowledge of economics, it enables individuals, households, firms, governments to be able to allocate their scarce resources. They'll be able to use their limited resources judiciously. Number two is that it leads to reduction of resources wastage, which means it leads to a reduction in wastage of what? Of resources. Economics helps to reduce wastage in allocation of scarce resources. Economic decision makers channel their resources to areas where they are mostly what needed. So the study and knowledge of economics will prevent wastage of resources. It will enable us to use the basic economic concepts like the scale of preference to arrange our wants in order of priority so that the limited resources that we have at our disposal will not be wasted. It brings about solution to basic economic problems. The study of economics provides students with basic skills for analyzing economic problems. You can see that the knowledge of economics give us the skills to be able to solve the major economic problems. If you are thinking of making decisions on what to produce, or you are thinking of making decisions on the method of production to use in production of goods and services, the knowledge of economic problems will enable us to make the right decisions. That's one of the reasons we study economics. Number next is that techniques of reasoning and critical thinking. Economics teaches the techniques of reasoning and power of critical thinking. With the economic tools we have, it enables to think like a rational consumers, which enables us to maximize the usage of limited resources. Another thing is the provision of basic tools for economic analysis. Economics equips the economic agents. Remember, I told you who economic agents are: individuals, firms, and governments, with the tools of economic analysis to understand and solve current issues and economic problems confronting the society, e.g., oil gluts, oil spillage, oil theft, unemployment. So, with the use of basic economic tools, the basic economic tools, we can determine the rates of unemployment in a country. All right. So, we can determine if there's oil spillage, the percentage of the oil spillage, the oil theft, and all this. We can use it to solve socio-economic problem in the country. Next is it's involve rational decision making. Economics enables individuals and other economic agencies to be rational and reasonable in the application of scarce resources to satisfy unlimited wants. A normal individual takes decision in the most acceptable and beneficial way. So the study of economics makes us rational in our decision making because it makes us to be able to derive maximum satisfaction from the usage of our limited resources. That's how that's the power that the study of economics gives to us as a student. Economics helps governments. Economics helps governments' economic policies and development. You find that economics help us to weigh the economic policies of the government to determine the advantages and disadvantages and offer the right suggestion on the way forward. Example is problem of unemployment, white elephants project, inflation, budget, etc. We have a lot of policies made by the government on economic growth and development that most of us may frown at, most of us may applaud. For example, there are a lot of policies taken by the Central Bank of Nigeria to make sure that Naira is strengthened. A lot of us have been able to applaud such policy. There are a lot of policies taken by Nigerian government to continue to borrow so as to finance infrastructural facilities. A lot of us are not happy with such decisions. Is the reason why we are not happy is because we have in-depth knowledge of economics. And we know that when you borrow too much, it leads to deficit financing, which will lead to inflation in a country. And it's one of the problems of Nigeria today, which is what inflation. So that's the power of economics for us. So with all this, we should be able to understand the introduction of economics. By now, you should be able to know the various definitions of economics. You should be able to know the basic concept of economics. You should be able to know the fundamental economic problem of a society, the branches of economics, and the reasons why we study economics. So see you in the next class. Bye for now.